Hi, welcome to another episode of Firm Foundations Podcast with your hosts CJ and Tony. So last week we started chapter 26 in Genesis, and just a quick recap, it's Isaac picking up from where his father left off and building a legacy. And in the process, God is making it Isaac's own legacy, where he's repeating the promises that he gave Abraham to Isaac and making them personal to him. And Isaac is going around continuing the family business, continuing to go around and preach the gospel of the kingdom of heaven as far as they knew it at the time, before they had full understanding of who the Messiah was and what he would do. Based on actually Abraham's last received revelation regarding that, actually they had a pretty decent understanding, an understanding that would be not matched until Isaiah and later on Jesus himself. But he's going around and they're just trying to exist. They're just trying to live and glorify God. And, they're coming against a lot of different opposition. Opposition from the climate, which is a topic that we won't get into, but, people love to talk about that. It's when we go off of those topics and chase down those rabbit holes that, like last week, we go off the rails.
Yes, we did.
But, so there's a famine in the land because of drought. And despite that, Isaac is blessed because he's putting the work in. It's not a blessing just because he sits around, reads a few books, listens to a few sermons, and knows a few nice things to say, and he prays a few well-worded prayers. No, he has a relationship with God, which is the source of his blessing, and then he goes and actually works. He actually puts the work in, and God's blessing is flowing. And that brings up the next opposition, which is the opposition that he faces from the inhabitants of the land that he's living in, that are envious, looking at him and looking at their fields, and they're like, why is he more blessed than us? Why is he reaping a 100-time harvest while we're not getting anything? And they're envious and jealous, so they try to redistribute the wealth. They try to destroy what he built up, because God forbid somebody else is successful when they're not successful. And that's the thing we see a lot in today's culture all around us, where people are envious and jealous and constantly pointing the fingers because he's successful, I'm not successful. It's because we're not putting the work in. If we're not successful, it's because either we don't know what we're doing or how to do it, and we're just not putting the work in.
We're just plain out lazy and don't want to do it and just want the handout.
Exactly. And God forbid we go and learn what we need to do, and God forbid we go and actually sweat and put the work in and get off our tugguses and do something. And that's where we went off the I went off the hinges there last week. If y'all want to go and laugh and maybe learn something from it, or point something out that I said wrong, please go ahead and check it out. It's going to be episode 32. This is going to be episode 33, FYI. But another obstacle he faces is one of his own making, where he lies about his relationship with his wife to the people around him because he wants to protect himself.
Sounds familiar.
Like father, like
that apple
son.
did not fall far from the tree. I
Yeah.
don't think it even hit the ground.
Nope, it just sprouted midair. But Lord help us all. But you know, and in that he shows that he's a lot like us, right? Because when we face trouble, we try to do the same thing. We try to take matters in our own hands and fix it based on our understanding, based on our judgment, based on our wisdom. And that doesn't always, in fact, many times, does not end with anything good coming out of it. But that's where we left off, right? We discussed how the ancient Philistines, the actual Philistines, were a model of, an example of what we see today in the so-called Palestinian Arab invasion of the Promised Land, and what they did in 2005 when Israel completely disengaged from Gaza by going around and destroying the greenhouses that Israelis built and left for them to use. They left them when they evacuated Gaza. They left those there, and what did the Arabs do? They destroyed them instead of feeding their own people, instead of putting it to use and building something out of it. They just destroyed it, just like the Philistines in that day did. And in that way, they're a lot like people all around us today, even in America, in Canada, in Britain, in Germany, in France.
Everywhere.
Just everywhere. Pick a place and look around. People are doing the same thing today. Instead of building one another up, instead of serving one another, they're destroying each other. They're slandering one another, and well, there's no blessing that comes out of that. And so that's where we left off, and now we're going to continue with the chapter 26, starting in verse 17, 18.